turn it off, Luke. We've got phone calls to make.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Deep Drop fishing podcast that tackles all sorts of weird and wonderful questions and conversations. And I suppose if you're new here, to put into some context what this show's all about, I'm going to throw to my good friend Adam Ring. Ads, can you make some sense of what the Deep Drop is for someone who hasn't heard it before?
Well, this is the beauty of the Deep Drop, Luke. It makes no sense. And that's exactly why it's worth listening to, because we ask each other some of the ridiculous questions that pop into our brains while we're sitting there casting a lure or soaking a bait and not much is happening. And then we try and put weird and wonderful answers to it. So there is a little bit of method to our madness. Now, you and I are lucky enough to have been working in this beautiful industry that is recreational fishing for quite a long time. So we've been asked all of these questions under the sun. We've had all of these conversations working together. We've had them fishing together. So we thought, why not hit record? Because sometimes we just strike these little nuggets of gold. And everything makes sense. And sometimes it's just complete bullshit.
Yeah, and it's not always about trying to find the answer, is it? I mean, these are the questions that pop up, as you said, when you're fishing or you're on a road trip or something. But they continue to pop up, ads. A lot of these are sort of real-time questions that we just come up with.
The beauty is the conversation, not the answer.
And exactly. And the other part of it is our loyal listeners get involved regularly and give us some great topics to go through and some great questions that, hey, a lot of them we can't answer, but we'll sure have a crack at them.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you are new here, that's kind of what we do. Welcome. So glad you could come and join us on the Deep Drop. And if you're a regular or you're back or this is the second episode you've heard or the 10th or the 20th, whatever it is, welcome back. Great to have you back on board. Stick around. And hey, I'll tell you another thing you can do. You can go to trybooking.com. Get yourself some tickets. There are still some tickets available. So in a week's time, ads, we're gracing the stage. Gracing's probably a bit of extreme sort of words here.
Yeah, that's okay. It's what we do here, Luke. Roll with it.
We're gracing the stage. And we are doing a live podcast with our good friends over at Wind Against Tide, Joey and Dave. And the two of us got together over a few red wines recently, ads, and thought this would be a great idea. And then we're doing it. So
yeah, we're doing it. It's one of the few things we said this would be a great idea, and we actually did it.
You know, my favourite thing about this whole concept is the fact that we'll be in the same room as our listeners. We've never done that. We've always recorded it. Yep. We've got the interaction over Instagram or something, which is great, and we still appreciate that. But we've finally got the opportunity to all be in the same room, have a couple of beers, talk about all the stuff that we talk about, get your feedback in real time because you'll be there. You can tell us what you think, exactly what you think. And just have a bit of fun with it, and then the boys from Wind Against Tide will get up, do a similar thing. They'll talk a lot more, probably sense, I suppose.
Yep, you're right.
But the big one, and we touched on this last week, is that we'll be joined on stage throughout the night in different sort of intervals by Lee Rayner, who, when it comes to talking sense about fishing, there's probably no one better.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we needed a fact checker, Luke, and we thought, what better person with the experience that Lee's had, either both fishing and presenting?
Yeah.
We thought, you know what better person to join us on stage and tell us when we're talking complete shit, or validate us when we just find those little nuggets of gold.
Mate, you know, and we're very, and I think the word you used last week was transparent in the way that we're not, don't beat around the bush, ads. We have fun with it when we're capable. But we also know we're just regular punters like everyone else that enjoy fishing for what it is. But every now and then, though, and mate, you know what? We've come up with some bangers on this show, and I don't underestimate. You know, the next Olympic Games might feature fishing.
Hey, I think it would be kind of disappointing if it didn't.
There's been more talk this week about Carpathon 24. And again, I don't want to overstep the mark, but the right people are listening, ads. That's all I'm saying.
I just want to I'm not going to harp on about Carpathon because we have enough.
We'll carp
already.
on about it.
Yeah, we'll carp on about it. But in the not too distant future, Luke, there is an Olympic Games coming to Australia.
Yeah.
I think it would be only fair if that was the introduction of fishing and the species was carp.
Oh, shit.
Would that not be?
Well, what about I've just to amplify that's the new sport in the games, because every host country I think can put their own sports in. I think that's still the case. So fishing,
New rule,
great, love it.
Yeah.
But I think to celebrate that, and one of the biggest sort of spectacles of the Olympic Games is the opening ceremony, and obviously the holy grail of the opening ceremony is lighting the flame.
Yeah.
I reckon we torch a carp.
Oh, big time. Drop the mic. Turn it off, Luke. We've got phone calls to make.
It just goes up a level every week, doesn't it?
Oh, that is fantastic.
I've got nothing else to say here tonight.
We'll be known around the world as the country that lit a carp on fire to start the Olympics.
How Australian is that, though?
It's the best.
Oh my God. How are we gonna open the games? Let's torch a carp.
Torch a carp.
Done.
And don't even gracefully hold it. Just stand back and lob it into the cauldron.
Just throw it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Mate.
Oh, this is
yeah.
we're innovators here, Luke. That's what we do.
So again, we're not going to sit here and talk about it all episode, but it's just
another suggestion. It's just another suggestion.
Yeah, I'm happy to sit in on the International Olympic Committee's next board meeting and just put it out there. And I think I'll get some attention.
Yeah, it's worth a conversation, I think.
Absolutely. Hey, mate, we've got a show to do, but very much looking forward to Carpathon, but also the live show next week. Getting really excited about it. It's going to be huge. As I said, there is still opportunity to get involved, so go to trybooking.com, search a deep drop, get your tickets, see you there. What's going on in your world, Ads?
Luke, I've stumbled across something in the last couple of weeks which has taken me a little bit by surprise. I haven't brought this up with you because it needed to be saved for this podcast. And it's actually a serious thing. I'm not going to take the piss out of something for a change.
Okay.
Oh, we might. But there's a new form of fishing that's starting to make its way onto Australian shores.
Mm-hmm.
I wanna ask you, after telling you what it is, I want to ask you, do you think that this could turn into another craze, fad? Could it eventually be something that makes its way into the normal, everyday part of this fishing landscape that we muck around in?
Okay.
And it's really interesting because it's based around finesse fishing with bait casters.
Okay.
Now, I'm not talking about any gear that is openly available. I would almost put money on you. If you wanted to buy a reel for this sort of fishing, you cannot buy one within Australia that is designed for this purpose. But there is a style of fishing out there where anglers are using bait casters and bait caster outfits to throw microplastics. I'm talking 1 to 3 grams.
Yeah,
using full bait caster setups. Now this is a thing overseas because there is gear built specifically, both rod and reel, that ties into exactly what I'm talking about. There is a small underground group of anglers, especially through central Victoria, that are using these techniques on trout.
Mm.
Is it something?
Well, I think first of all, just to, I suppose, take a step back, what are we talking about? So is it mainly a trout fishery type thing that we're talking about here?
Well, I don't, to be honest, I've got no idea what it's designed for overseas. I'd assume it's trout based, but I don't know.
I think the question, and I've seen or heard murmurings of this around, but not. I haven't played with the gear. You're absolutely right. I think when I had some form of conversation about it, although I wasn't aware of the actual, I suppose, ultra light finesse it was when you're talking about the weight of the plastics and so forth. But yeah, I don't think there's relevant gear available on our market anyway. But I think the question that straight away comes to mind is, what's the value in it? What's the return on investment?
And this is exactly what I'm really interested to know, because in our catalogue at Rapala, we have had these rods available. We have bought them into the country. We've sold them in the past, but it's nothing that's been sustainable for us. The numbers aren't there to sell it. They've ended up on specials lists, and they've since then been discontinued in Australia. They're still made overseas.
Yep.
I've never seen a reel designed for this. I know there was some stuff from Daiwa. There has been some finesse bait casters, small bait casters that Daiwa have done through the years. I'm not terribly familiar with them. I'm not even going to pretend that I am. Well, but I know they have been around. But there is this... But apart from the gear's a different thing. I could absolutely lose my mind over the gear because I love that shit. I love it.
You and I are the worst people to talk to about whether someone thinks gear is worth it or worth getting in, because we'll always say, yeah, absolutely, and send me some.
I'm all for it.
But I think there's a couple of factors here, and one is, as I said, is it going to change your success rate when it comes to fishing for whether it be trout or if it's brim or if it's bass? Is it going to affect your success rate, and by how much? Like, if it's the kind of thing where if all of a sudden it was a game changer and it changed your catch rate from a couple of fish a session to just smashing it, then you've got something that's marketable. But I think to just bring in something new with no real... Like, we all love new. New's great. And the entire world goes crazy for new in whatever industry, whatever category, in whatever space it is. Doesn't always mean it's got longevity on a shelf or it's got any sort of success either. I think I think there needs to be a story told and some really strong marketing behind these products to give people the ability to see why it is that they're good and what they can do with it. Yeah, we've seen a few products come and go that were good and had potential to be really strong products, whether they be a type of reel or lures or whatever it was, but it hasn't really been enough done to showcase to people, hey, this is on the market now, here's why it's awesome, and actually showing it, not just a really compelling piece that gets you excited, goes, oh, I need one, but more to say, here's what it actually does and can do for you. Yeah,
so what? Yeah, and that's ultimately my biggest question with this is, where can you see, where's the technical advantage of having a bait caster that can cast things that light? Because the advantage of bait casters up until this point is they're actually a hell of a lot more comfortable and more capable of casting heavier and bigger lures more accurately. A spin reel with a light-actioned 6 foot to 6'6" rod casts 1 to 3 gram stuff effortless
already. Yeah.
And accurately. I can't see where you would have a technical advantage translating that ultra-light fishing, translating that to a bait caster. I could be wrong. I don't know. I've never played with this gear. I've never fished with it. I've never even seen a reel that's purpose-built for this style of fishing. But I don't... It's great that it's happening because just from a gear junkie perspective, it's cool. Sure. And you know what? We live in Victoria. We don't use bait casters all that often. They're fucking cool.
Yep.
They're heaps cooler than a spin reel because we don't get to use them all the time.
Yeah. I think it's a... Because I know there is a bit of a... there is a bit of a pushback or not pushback, but a push on people starting to use bait cast more for things like bass and so forth. But it's not. We're not talking ultra light. It's a pretty. Yeah, that's right. It's light. Certainly not the lightness you're talking about. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it's a overly. The problem is, and this is something that obviously you and I see daily, is to get this sort of thing off the ground. We need a fair chunk of the fishing fraternity using it because the sales need to be there. It won't even reach the country if we didn't think the sales are going to be there. And I'm not sure that there's any manufacturer right now that would probably back it. Don't know. I might be wrong.
Well, the only, I guess, where it would be viable to try, as in, if one of these real companies, whether it be Shimano, Daiwa, 13, Rapala, whatever, if they were able to access a small quantity of those reels to bring into the country to try it, it would be interesting. But if they're relying on having to take runs of things, and being held to MOQs, it's a risk.
Yeah, if they could tack onto an order from the US or something, sweet.
And I can't imagine there would be an insanely affordable reel, baitcaster reel, that is going to be capable of casting such light things. It's going to have to be cut to the gear's going to be cut to such precision.
Yeah.
And the manufacturing standard is going to have to be to such a high level just in order for a reel of that style to be able to cope with small lures.
Yep.
I can't imagine it being an entry level thing.
It's going to be
$500 plus.
I was going to say it's going to be
on the cheap end. It'd be $350. It's still not cheap.
My assumption would be it'd have to be over a plus $300 reel.
Yeah. Rods are a different story. I've been shown examples of the rods overseas, which even importing them yourself, it's going to set you back $150 to $200.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap.
Still a
but it's not
$500, $600, $700 outfit, and then the line you have to get decent line.
Well, that's the other thing I don't know. For this application of how light the stuff is, I don't know what's better. Is it braid? Are we going to go back to maybe these ultra thin braids, which have kind of fallen out of fashion, to be honest? We're starting most braid sales at £10 these days because of how thin it is.
Yeah.
Do we now start to see a relevance of high-end 4-pound braid again and 2-pound braid? Or is there a super slick mono that adds to the weight of the end product, which helps castability? I don't know.
Is there a slick 2-pound mono?
Oh, I'm sure there would be. But do you need the extra weight that a mono provides in order to even get an ultralight lure to where it needs to go with a bait caster?
Yeah, because I just instantly am triggered by braid that fine, and we spoke about wind knots recently on this show. Oh. It'd be a fucking nightmare, ads.
That'd be the worst.
I'm not into it.
So I want to cast this question out there to the listeners. If you are listening to this right now and you're one of these anglers that knows about this style of fishing that I'm talking about,
I'd love to hear it. Yep.
Please, I'd love your feedback, because I don't know anything about it. It's interesting to me because as someone working for a tackle company, we're always trying to figure out what's going to be the next thing, like what's going to take off.
Oh, and I'm certainly not shutting down the idea. I'm open to it. I love all that sort of stuff and just anything new. I just struggle to see that it could get enough traction to be a consistent product offering, so to speak, from a tackle point of view. But from a usage point of view, if there's benefits to it, and there's no doubt. If you're like up a trout river or something and you've got the ability to cast those, really small sort of bug imitation plastics and that, you do well for sure. Yeah. But yeah, it's a great one. It's really interesting. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. So yeah, great call. If there's anyone out there listening that's aware of it or has tried it or knows someone let's hear it.
It's an interesting, it's just it'll be interesting to see where it goes and if it becomes a thing.
Great one.
But
hey, just on the line thing for a moment, I'm sorry to just get sort of derail this a little bit, but I wonder where, and I know there's reasons for and whatever, but when is there going to be a point where we can go away from, we can get some consistency with meters and yards, spool of line? It doesn't matter how long I've been in this industry, you even longer. Maybe I'm alone here, but it still does my head in. Let's get a bit of consistency.
Yeah. We probably need to address this on a worldwide scale.
Oh, yeah.
How are some places still running old school imperial and some read metric? It's weird.
But then I look at, and then in the same argument, right? Because you go, oh, okay, well, the American market uses yards and pounds and whatever. But then I look at a spool I've got sitting in front of me, just happened to be sitting in front of me, which is from Shimano. So you're saying, okay, well, it's 6 pound. And that's how we have referred to line for.
Yeah, yep, 100%.
That's okay. But then it's 150 metres.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I've never thought of it. It actually doesn't make any sense at all.
So it doesn't. So it just drives me a bit nuts. And I'm okay. I can work it out, but it's just. It's
weird.
though.
No, it's weird though, because if you walk into a tackle shop and saw that exact same spool of braid, and it said 150 meters, but it said 3 kilo, for a split second you go, "Oh, what's that in pounds?"
Yeah, you're right. It is funny because there's nothing else. Not that I can think of off the top of my head where I use pounds or ounces or except fishing, and it's like common language.
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
right. Yeah.
So you know whether it's a same as jig heads.
Actually, I can think of one other thing.
Oh, I can think of one other thing too. What are you thinking about?
You go first.
No, I'm not saying it. It's go.
Babies.
Yeah, mine was a bit more R-rated than that.
No, do it. Oh, you got to do it now.
No. Babies. Yeah, but that's weird too. Like, just tell me how many kilos the.
But it's weird though, because if someone had a baby and said, "Oh, it's X amount of kilos," I'm like, "Fuck, how big's that?" Like, I know if someone has a 10-pound baby, it's a mammoth of a child. But if they go, "Oh, it's 5 kilos," they go, "Oh, whatever."
Who was the jig head brand? I think it was Squidgies when they did jig heads, and they were in grams, and that used to drive me nuts.
Fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at that and go, well, I don't know.
I don't know how heavy this thing is.
I'll stick with me TTs or whatever it was. Yeah, that was strange. Strange call on their behalf.
Yeah.
Maybe trying to localise it a bit too much, perhaps. But I don't know. Like the meter or the length of line, 150 metres or yards or 300, whatever it is.
But I love the ones that have yards. Say, I'll just say 300 yards. And then in brackets next to it, it'll have 270 metres.
Yeah. It's like, just pick one. Just commit to it.
Just put everything on there.
Just back yourself. Like, far out. Sorry, when you said something about line before, and it's just one of those ones that's always in my head, and I just, like I said, I had this spool of line sitting there, and I'm just like, it's just Actually, you know what? This has actually got 6 pound, 2.7 kilos.
Yeah.
Fucking just work it out.
I love it. Another thought that I had on a recent trip, Luke, is I'd go as far to say when you and I fish, it's 95 to 99% of the time with lures, artificial.
I thought you were going to say a failure.
That too, which is why I thought of this, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, no, that's a fair call. The absolute vast majority is lure fishing, yep.
Say you and I did a gippy run, right? And we're just snag hopping for brim and perch, chucking plastics. Not much is happening. Yet we'll continue to flog that horse until there's not much left of it.
Love the scene you're setting. Like,
no, because you got to. It's all about context here, Luke. In this program.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Say we did that for 2 days and not much is happening. If we were to go to a local tackle shop and buy a punnet of scrubbies and some live shrimp, if we were to do exactly the same thing and essentially lure fish with bait, and the reason this came up is because I do a fair bit of fishing with my dad.
Yep.
He was the whole lure craze phenomenon, plastic thing, that started well after his prime in fishing, if that makes sense.
Yep.
If him and I went away together on the boat and the plastic thing's doing his head in, if I gave him a hook and some live shrimp or a punnet of worms with a split shot or two an inch and a half above the hook, and he was casting into the same snags that I was with a plastic, do you reckon he'd catch more fish?
That's a great question. A great question. He wouldn't be any worse off, I wouldn't have thought. Do you think he'd catch more?
I reckon it would be shockingly different. Because I think to a lot of it, at what point are we falling in love with the technique rather than the result? Because
it's poetic. That was poetic.
If we went up a river, right, and they could just snag hop in. It doesn't matter what species it's for. It could be for cod, it could be for bass, it could be for perch, it could be for bloody redfin. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
But if you were to cover the ground with a live bait with little weight on it, so the most natural presentation that you can give that bait, that's got to work better than a plastic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we still get to use the sexy gear. We still get to use the ultra light 6'6" and 7 foot rods. We still get to use our big fancy reel or our small fancy reels that are capable of casting ultra light braids and this, that, and the other thing.
Oh, it's a great one. I'd love to trial this. I'd love to test this out.
Me too.
Because
I can't help but think if we've got a bucket full of minnows, or say we've got a bucket full of prawns, and we went up the river at Bem and snagged top casting it, we'd catch 100 times more perch than we would on plastics.
It makes you think that. Because, and I think a river, like an estuary, is a great place to test that theory on. Yeah. I think it's a bit different in a bay, or I mean, it might be the same result, but it's not as simple as like for like. I think in an estuary or in a river or something like that, you can go, all right, lure there, bait there, within a foot of each other, or fish the same snag or the same patch of water. You'd have to think it would be successful. Certainly no worse off.
No, definitely not worse off. Because it's kind of like where...
Well, I mean, have you and your dad done that?
No, we haven't. And I think about it every single time, because we'll slave away all day casting lures. And it's great fun. Don't get me wrong. I could do it all day and catch 2 fish and think it was a good day. But like, what are we leaving on the table? I just can't... Yeah. I can't help but think, would we benefit from putting the lures and plastics away when things are tough and just putting a worm into a snag?
Yeah, but isn't that part of the acceptance when you sort of... Like there's an element of that knowledge. Like you sort of go somewhere and you know that if you soaked a couple of baits, local, live or dead, but local baits, you're going to get a few brim guaranteed. But if you opt for a hard body, soft plastic, top water, whatever it is, you go, I'm now challenging myself more because it's harder.
Yep.
But I'm certainly still in with a chance because these are the perfect presentations, blah, blah, blah. But you kind of already know that you're not doing necessarily the best thing to maximize your catch rate, if that makes sense.
And it's funny, we see bait fishing as so unbelievably old school that we don't let modern technology aid us. So bait fishing was always drop an anchor or tie to a tree and bait fish out the back of the boat. And what happens if you're bait fishing with an electric motor?
Oh, and live scope.
And you're covering ground.
Yeah.
Like this is surely...
It's a great call.
It could potentially be a game changer. It could potentially be a game changer.
You could very much have the same mindset, couldn't you? So you're, I suppose, moving under your electric, you're finding fish on the sounder, and as you would cast your plastic into that or across that or in front of that, you're just doing that with your bait.
That's right. You're still working every angle of that snag. You're working all the way around it. But instead of casting a plastic on a jig head and twitching it, not knowing if you're twitching it too hard, not twitching it enough, going too fast, going too slow, just go and float a worm or a prawn into that snag, basically hold it for 30 seconds. If you haven't got something by then, wind it in, recast it. And just keep working, because you're essentially trying to catch those fish that are in that snag.
It's an amazing point.
It'd have to be better, wouldn't it?
Let's hear it.
It would have to be the most successful. To the point where I almost hate myself for not doing it.
There's still time, mate. What, have you retired, have you?
I might. Well, you know what? I might retire from lure
Yeah.
fishing after giving this a go.
Let's hear it. Like, what do you guys think? Have you tested the theory? Have you got an opinion on whether or not that makes sense, what Adam is saying, and whether or not that... I certainly think that the moving around and using a sounder is probably something... We've skipped it, haven't we? We've skipped the bait fishing element of that.
We have.
Because as you say, it's gone from under anchor soaking a bait to high-tech lure fishing.
Yeah. So why don't we high-tech bait fish?
Wow, high-tech bait fish. Bait fishing.
It's got to work, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. As I said, I don't think it can't be any worse. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
well, the only part of the industry that high-tech bait fish are the marlin fishermen. Because they'll go to the bait grounds in the morning and get their slimies or whatever. They'll go and sound up a bait ball and sound up the marlin on the bait ball and then feed them alive.
yeah, that's about it. I was just trying to think of other elements. I mean, the blue water thing is probably one place where it is done, but it's typically live baits, whether it's kingfish,
but it's to the point,
cubing for tuna.
It's to the point now where at Burmese there's more
Swordfish.
people live baiting than there is guys towing lures for marlin because it's deadly. Using the modern technique of sounders and technology combined with an old school way of fishing with live bait has turned into one of the most successful ways to catch marlin. Why aren't we doing it with Murray cod? Why aren't we doing it with brim, perch? Why aren't we doing any of it?
Well, for me, it's I don't want to get bait on my hands.
Fair call.
It's a really great call, and I'd love to test it on any of those species or situations that you spoke about. I think the estuary one would be awesome if you got a fresh bag of prawns or whatever. You know, it'd be a really interesting result. Especially if you're doing it side by side with a lure fish. Like if you've got two of you, one's lure fishing and one's bait fishing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way to really get a
true gauge of it.
A fair gauge on it. Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. We're going to have to do it.
I just can't see how it wouldn't work.
No. If anyone out there wants to do it, film a little thing for us. Send it on
show
through.
us.
Yeah. We'll promote it for you. Let us know how accurate or inaccurate we are. But hey, it could be another one we throw to our very special guest Lee Rayner, who will be with us on stage at the live event next week, Adam.
Yep, next week. That's coming around quick.
Oh man!
When do we sit down and plan what we're going to do?
Oh, on the night.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm happy with that.
No, we've got. We shouldn't play that down because we've got a pretty cool set planned for everyone. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be in the theme of the deep drop. Let's just put it that way. Yes. We're not steering too far from what we do, and we do have some questions for the audience, Adam.
Yes, we do.
So we've got some of them up our sleeve. We've got some quick fire questions to throw out at Lee and get some probably feedback from the audience. Yep. Mate, we're putting Lee under the pressure. The spotlight's he's going to be on the hot seat.
Oh, he'll be sweating. Will be sweating.
So Thursday the 6th of July in Berwick in Victoria, 7 p.m. kickoff. Tickets are available at trybooking.com. Search the Deep Drop or go onto the Deep Drop or Wind Against Tide Instagram or Facebook pages, wherever you want to go. There's links there to be able to do it. And we're going to be shouting pizzas.
Yep.
The bar's there. Grab yourself a couple of drinks. We're certainly going to grab ourselves a couple of drinks, Adam, my friend. And come and talk fishing with us. Have a bit of fun. Lee Rayner, Dave Standing will be there. Joey will be there.
Yep.
I've put pressure on Joey to do a bit of a bass guitar solo for us. You know, he's a famous bass guitarist.
I'll watch it. I'll sit there and watch it.
So anyway, we'll see what happens. I don't think he likes the idea of it, but whatever. It's going to be a good night, ads. And like I said, 1 week away. This is pretty much your last chance to grab.
Get your tickets.
Whatever tickets are remaining. So please do, because we want to see as many people as we can there, and it's going to be lots of fun. And who knows, could be the first of many. Don't know.
I hope. Well, I think it will be. I'm confident.
And I'm okay if we want to put aside a block of time on the night to talk Carpathon 24.
Well, I think
there might be a stall.
Kind of inevitable.
in an information booth.
What are those like consultation nights that the VFA do when they're doing a new boat ramp or something? Yeah, we're going to have one about carp.
Yeah, yep. So get involved in that. Anyway, it's we got a lot of makeup to put on prior to the night ads because we've got to be looking sharp.
There's not enough makeup in the world to make this mug look acceptable, Luke. So we'll just have to roll with it.
Going to be a ripper. Don't miss out. We'll see you there. Thanks very much. See you there.
Yeah.